Chosen one, lock your attention on this message right now. That quiet confidence you have been carrying this week, the one you almost talked yourself out of, do not let it go. The elite are not watching you by accident. Something shifted in the invisible realm the moment you decided to stop shrinking. The moment you stopped apologizing for how you walked into a room. The moment you stopped dimming your presence to make other people comfortable. That decision, that exact moment of refusal, was heard in places you have not been invited to yet. But you are about to be. Think back to that moment this week when you almost did not show up. Maybe you almost did not make the call. Maybe you almost stayed quiet in a room where your voice was needed. Maybe you almost let someone else take the seat that had your name on it. You stood at the edge of shrinking, and you did not shrink. You did not know it then, but that was not just a personal victory. That was a signal. The moment you performed at that level, the level you have been told is too much, too bold, too ambitious, doors in rooms you cannot see started to open. The elite do not watch people who play small. They watch people who cannot be contained. You did not find this message by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment scheduled before the foundations of the earth, for the chosen one who is standing on the edge of the most significant room they have ever been invited into. Stay until the very last second, because in the next few minutes I am going to show you exactly what shifted in your favor when you decided to show up fully. I am going to walk you through the spiritual audit of the performance the enemy tried to cancel, and why that performance just placed your name in front of people who have the authority to accelerate your assignment. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals your access into those rooms so the door cannot be shut behind you. Do not click away. Your future self, the one already seated at that table, is watching this moment right now, asking you to stay. My name is Zerekiel. I have spent years studying the hidden patterns of the spirit realm, the warfare, the activations, the divine setups that look like ordinary moments until you understand what was actually happening in the invisible. I have walked over 10,000 chosen ones through their moment of breakthrough, including the moment they realized their gift had already opened doors they had not stepped through yet. If this is your first time here, subscribe and hit the notification bell right now. Not because I need the numbers, but because the next message I release might be the one that was written specifically for the room you are about to walk into. Now let me tell you what the enemy has been whispering while all of this was happening. Because even as the doors were opening, even as your name was being spoken in rooms you have not physically entered, something has been working against your belief. The atmosphere around you has felt strange this week. Not loud, heavy, like pressure behind your eyes, like a ceiling you keep bumping into that you cannot see. Maybe you woke up at 3 a.m. this week and lay there in the dark, running through everything you have done, everything you have said, every room you walked into, wondering if it was enough, wondering if you came across as too much or not enough, wondering if the people who were watching actually saw what you intended them to see, or if they saw the version of you that you are still afraid of. And in that stillness, the enemy started whispering a very specific lie. He told you that the show you put on was not enough, that the people in those rooms were not actually impressed. They were just polite. That behind the closed doors after you left, they moved on and forgot your name. He started replaying the moments you hesitated, the moment your voice wavered, the moment you second-guessed the bold move and pulled back just slightly. The accuser has been using those moments as evidence that you do not actually belong in the rooms you are being invited into. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Isaiah 45 verse 2 says, "I will go before you and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of bronze and cut the bars of iron." Listen to that promise. God goes before you, into the rooms before you arrive, into the conversations before your name is spoken. The doors that are opening for you right now were not opened by your performance. Your performance was only the confirmation of what God had already arranged. The elite who are watching you were already directed toward you before you put on the show they witnessed. You did not earn the room. You were assigned it. And no one can reassign it. The pressure you feel is not the weight of someone who is losing access. It is the weight of someone who is standing at a threshold so significant that the enemy is pulling out every weapon he has left. He is not attacking your past anymore. He is attacking your future because he can see you entering it. You think the hesitation you felt this week was weakness. You think the moments you almost pulled back were evidence that you are not ready. Let me reframe your reality right now. Those moments of hesitation were not weakness. They were the final test before the invitation. And you passed. The version of you that showed up anyway, that performed anyway, that walked into the room anyway. That is the version of you whose name is now being spoken behind doors that are still closed to you. For now, you are not being considered for the room. You are being prepared for the table. And that distinction between being considered and being prepared is everything. Most people spend their entire lives auditioning for rooms God already reserved their seat in. They perform for approval. They shrink for acceptance. They polish their presentation, hoping someone with power will finally notice them and say, "Yes, you belong here." But the chosen one doesn't audition. The chosen one arrives, and the difference isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's the quiet, unshakable knowing that the room didn't choose you. Heaven did. And heaven's decisions are not subject to human review. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the chosen one's mantle. This sacred guide reveals the 12 divine codes behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. The codes that turn the life heaven already wrote over you into the life you actually walk. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now let's talk about what actually happened this week, not the version you've been replaying in your head at 3 a.m, the version that was recorded in the spirit realm. When you chose not to shrink, you didn't just make a personal decision. You made a spiritual declaration. You told every dark force that had been assigned to your limitation that its lease was up. You told the fear that had been living in your nervous system, the one that learned to call itself wisdom, the one that learned to dress itself up in caution. You told it that it no longer had authority over your movements. And that declaration echoed. Not in the room you were standing in the rooms above it. Here's where it goes deeper. The hesitation you felt, that pull toward the smaller version of yourself, was not random. It was targeted. The enemy doesn't attack what he isn't afraid of. He doesn't send resistance to the person who poses no threat to his agenda. The weight you've been carrying this week, that strange pressure behind your eyes, that ceiling you keep bumping into, that is not the atmosphere of someone who is failing. That is the atmosphere of someone who is about to break through something. Resistance is not a sign that you are going the wrong direction. It is confirmation that you are going exactly the right one. Think about Elijah on Mount Carmel. Before the fire fell, before the rain came, before the drought broke and the heavens opened, Elijah faced a moment of profound exposure. He stood alone on that mountain, in front of 450 prophets of Baal, in front of a king who wanted him dead, in front of a nation that had turned its back on everything holy. And he did not lower his voice. He did not soften his challenge. He called down fire in front of everyone, knowing that if heaven didn't show up, he would be humiliated. Knowing that if God didn't answer, the silence would cost him everything. But here is what most people miss about that moment. Elijah's boldness was not the cause of the fire. The fire was already coming. Elijah's boldness was simply his agreement with what God had already decided. And what's coming next will likely surprise you. It always does. Because you've been taught that your breakthrough depends on how well you perform, how polished you are, how prepared, how perfectly you can present the version of yourself that the room will accept. You've been trying to earn what was already given. And that striving, that relentless, exhausting effort to prove yourself worthy of spaces heaven already placed your name in, that is the very thing that has been slowing your entrance. This brings us to something most people miss entirely. Worthiness is not a destination. It is not a level you reach after enough preparation, enough sacrifice, enough seasons of suffering. Worthiness was assigned to you before your parents had a name for you. The suffering you walked through didn't make you worthy. It made you recognizable. It marked you. It produced in you a depth, a texture, a resilience that cannot be faked and cannot be manufactured. And the rooms you are about to walk into don't need a polished version of you. They need the marked version, the one who has been through something, the one who carries weight in their voice because they earned it in places most people never go. But here's where I need to challenge you with something, because there is a version of this message that the enemy will try to use against you. He will take the truth that you are assigned and chosen and marked, and he will twist it into passivity. He will whisper, "If it's already decided, then you don't have to do anything. Just wait. Just rest. Just trust the timing." And you will sit still while the table is being set and call it faith. But that is not faith. That is abdication. The promise that God goes before you into the room does not mean you don't enter the room. It means that when you walk through the door, the groundwork has already been laid. But you still have to walk through the door. Daniel didn't stop praying because God was sovereign. He prayed 3 times a day with his window open toward Jerusalem, knowing that the king had made it illegal, knowing that the lions were waiting. He didn't say, "God already knows my heart, so I'll pray privately where no one can see." He opened the window. He let it be seen. And the faithfulness that led him into the lion's den was the same faithfulness that closed the lions' mouths. His consistency wasn't the performance of a man trying to earn favor. It was the obedience of a man who understood that his assignment required showing up, fully, visibly, repeatedly, even when showing up had a cost. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share next is the part that breaks the cycle. There is something you have been doing in secret that heaven has been watching. Not the big things, not the performances, not the moments when you showed up in a room full of people who could advance your calling. I'm talking about the small moments. The moment you chose integrity when no one was watching. The moment you kept your word to someone who had no power to reward you for it. The moment you served without an audience. The moment you carried someone else's burden when you were barely standing under the weight of your own. Those moments were not invisible. They were the very moments that built the infrastructure of the room you are now being invited into. The table you are being seated at was not set by your most impressive performance. It was set by your most faithful ones. This is where the real transformation begins, because most people think that their assignment is about their gift. And it is, partially. But your gift is only the key. Your character is the door. And if the key is more developed than the door, you will open rooms you are not stable enough to stand in. You will gain access to levels that will expose fractures in your foundation before the foundation is ready to hold the weight. God's delays are not punishment. They are structural. He is not withholding the room because he is testing your patience. He is expanding your capacity so that when you arrive, you don't crack under the weight of what you were called to carry. Think about Joseph again. Not just the pit, not just the prison, but the in-between. The years in Potiphar's house, where he was given responsibility and he handled it with integrity. Not because anyone was watching. Not because Pharaoh was coming. Not because he knew what was next. He was faithful in the small house before he was trusted with the palace. And even then, even after the faithfulness, even after the integrity, even after the years of serving with excellence in places far beneath his calling, he still had to go through the prison. Not because he failed, because there was something that could only be built in the waiting. There are rooms that can only be prepared for in the dark. And here is what I need you to hear right now, with everything inside of you. The dark season you have been walking through, the one that has felt like abandonment, like delay, like everyone around you is advancing while you remain in the same place. It was not a setback. It was a structural investment. Heaven was reinforcing the foundation because it knows the weight of what is coming. And what is coming is heavy, not heavy like a burden, heavy like authority, heavy like legacy, heavy like the kind of impact that outlives the person carrying it. But here's the part you probably didn't expect. The thing that has been blocking your full entrance into the rooms you've been assigned. It isn't the enemy. It isn't your past. It isn't the people who hurt you. The doors that closed, the opportunities that seemed to vanish. It isn't even the fear, as real and as loud as that fear has been. The thing that has been slowing you down is an agreement you made with a lesser version of yourself. Somewhere along the way, in the middle of the rejection, in the middle of the silence, in the middle of the years when showing up fully seemed to produce nothing, you made a quiet, internal agreement that maybe this is as far as you go. Maybe the vision was too big. Maybe the calling was misread. Maybe you heard God, but you heard him wrong. And you started building your life around the perimeter of that agreement instead of the fullness of the promise. That agreement has to be broken, not just confronted, broken, severed, renounced with the same boldness that Joseph used when he told his brothers, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." He didn't minimize what they did. He didn't pretend the pit wasn't real, but he refused to allow their intention to become his identity. He refused to let the worst thing that happened to him write the final sentence of his story. And you have to do the same thing right now. Not someday, not when it feels right. Right now. Because the rooms are open. The table is set. The people with the authority to accelerate your assignment have already had their attention directed toward you. And the only thing standing between you and your entrance is the version of you that stopped believing the promise was still active. Let that version go. Not harshly. Not with shame. With the quiet, resolute decision of someone who finally understands what was always true. That you were never disqualified. You were only being deepened. Place your hand on your heart and declare this with me. I release every agreement I made with a lesser version of myself. I renounce the lie that I was too much, not enough, too late, or too far gone. I declare that the rooms heaven assigned to me have not been given to anyone else. I declare that the table that carries my name is still set and still waiting. I release the weight of every season that tried to convince me the promise was cancelled. I receive the confirmation that my faithfulness in the hidden place has already been recorded and rewarded. I walk forward today not as someone who is hoping to be chosen, but as someone who has always been chosen and is finally walking like it. The door is open. My name is on it. And I am stepping through, not in my own strength, in the strength of the one who placed my name in rooms I haven't entered yet, and promised he would be there when I arrived. If this word broke something open in you today, leave a comment below that says, "I'm stepping through," because I want to see the names of the ones who received this and decided to walk forward. Share this with someone who is standing on the edge of their room right now and doesn't know how close they actually are. And if you are ready to go deeper into the divine codes behind your calling, your suffering, and why you were chosen before you were born, the link for the Chosen One's mantle is in the first pinned comment. This is not information. It is activation. And you have already proven today that you are someone who shows up when it matters. Your future self is watching this moment. Make a decision they will be grateful for.